What's up, fight fans? It is the TSD Alyas here, back again with another baker, and welcome to the Split Decision Podcast. I'm Alyas Blanco. That's my boy Nate Marrero. Nate, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. How you doing, Elias?
I'm a little tired. Obviously, I had an overnight shift, so I'm
Those are
pretty
always
tired.
fun.
Hit the gym though, hit shoulders. Feeling great. Kind of doing a cut right now, a 4-month cut. So I'm hungry constantly, but always great to talk boxing, man. I'm ready to talk
You're,
boxing.
you're looking slimmer.
Stop. Don't do that. Stop.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. Dude, we were supposed to do this podcast on Sunday. Sunday was busy for me. Monday or yesterday, today's Tuesday,
Yeah.
but yesterday you went to Epic Universe, had the
I don't
grand
even
old
know.
time. I was very
Yeah.
very jealous.
Yeah. I don't even
Um,
know if I'm even supposed to be talking about this, but not trying to get my
hey.
roommate who also works there fired.
Okay, well you didn't have to mention that, buddy. That's all on you. That is all on
All
you.
right.
I'll tell
Yeah.
you that. You incriminated
I
your
don't
own
think it
stuff.
should be. I don't think it should be a problem. I don't see why they would come after me.
Hey, but listen.
I don't know.
Not a bad
Oh,
week in boxing over
yeah.
the weekend, this past weekend, man. I mean, it wasn't like this, it wasn't like the biggest shows, but I would say there was a few fights that kind of determined the stake in each, like in different divisions in the sport of boxing. And we should just get into the biggest headline from this past weekend, and that's Mr. William Zepeda beating Tevin Farmer in the rematch by majority decision over in Mexico. A fight where I thought William Zepeda was going to actually starch him in the rematch. I
Mhm.
think that the first match was incredibly close. Tevin Farmer got the knockdown in that fight, and he really stood toe to toe with William Zepeda, who I thought was the boogeyman at lightweight. And that fight, that first fight, kind of humanized him, and I think this second fight did the exact same thing.
Yeah, I agree. I thought. Obviously the first fight I was like, all right, figuring Tevin Farmer, he's a good name. This would be a chance, like for because everything has been moving towards Zepeda fighting Shakur Stevenson. So a chance for him to fight a slick southpaw, see how he fares, and then Farmer gave him hell in the first fight and dropped him. And like with it being this rematch being in Mexico, figured Farmer is another fight older, and so hopefully see if Zepeda can improve and take the next step and win even more win impressively this time. And he didn't really do that. He had his like there were moments where he was in control and was close to stopping him, but really like Farmer's toughness like really showed. And just Zepeda is a heavy bet. He is there to be hit. But like it's yeah, just I thought for Zepeda it can be a good experience and he can learn from this, but at the same time, like I don't know how much he can really change. This these two fights against Farmer may have very well shown his ceiling in the lightweight division.
Yeah, and the one big like perception that I had of him before these two Tevin Farmer fights was that one, he is an energizer bunny, with the fact that he constantly pushes the pace from round one, can throw at a high volume, doesn't really slow down, and I thought he had a lot of power. That's what I thought. I mean, you see how he stopped Maxie Hughes, kind of stopped him with an accumulation of punishment, but with this Tevin Farmer fight, who he fought a guy who has what, 7 knockouts to his name, 6, 7
Yeah,
knockouts.
7, I believe.
He wasn't able to get him out of there in 24 rounds, especially with that pace that he was giving to a Tevin Farmer who throughout the rematch looked like he was injured. He kept kind of waving
Yeah.
his left arm or the left or right
Mhm.
arm, kind of indicating like a hand or shoulder injury or something like that. And that was the real big thing. And a lot of people were giving Tevin Farmer credit in this fight just because it looked like he was going through adversity and he was still landing some big shots on El Camarón Cepeda, man. Was Tevin Farmer robbed in this rematch?
I don't think so. I just think like obviously Zepeda, like with everything Farmer was dealing with the injury, and like Zepeda got off to a really good start. And like when you look at CompuBox, obviously stats aren't the best like way to tell because like obviously given that boxing is scored by round, like friggin' two big rounds can like completely skew the stats. But like Zepeda almost landed like 200 more punches than Farmer. That's tough that's pretty tough to overlook. And Zepeda's volume and his pressure, like don't get me wrong, Farmer fought well. I don't think it was enough to get a decision, though. What says you?
Yeah.
Do you think he was robbed?
Nah, I don't think he was robbed. I think he performed better in this fight than the first fight, only because Tevin Farmer was looked like he was kind of was it he looked like he was at a disadvantage, injured and stuff. And also, I think he cracked him a couple more times in this fight than he did in the first fight.
Yeah,
There was more times, especially like in the beginning rounds, where it looked like Tevin Farmer was in a bit of trouble towards the end of the rounds.
yeah.
I thought, despite me like kind of being underwhelmed with his performance, it was still a better performance this time around than it was, back in November.
Mhm.
Yeah, but listen, before we get into the real question, I wanted to take a look at the lightweight division, because the lightweight division is very open for Zepeda. I mean, obviously, Zepeda is the interim WBC champion there. The world champion, obviously, Shakur Stevenson, who's ranked at number 4 in the lightweight, which is, to me, I think is pretty surprising when you look at, Keyshawn Davis. He just won a title at lightweight. He just won it, and Shakur has defended it twice. Vasily Lomachenko just beat George Kambosos, who, I mean, granted, he just moved up in weight, but wasn't even in the top 10 when he was crowned. And then obviously Gervonta Davis is coming off that very controversial draw against Lamont Roach. So William Zepeda right now sitting at 5. What do you think? Is that the right ranking for him right now?
I would say so. I think, yeah, 'cause I honestly, against any of those top four, I wouldn't pick Zepeda against him. His best shot would probably be against Lomachenko just because of his age and like maybe if he slowed down enough and he doesn't have the same movement. But yeah, I would feel very comfortable picking any of the top four to beat Zepeda just because he's don't get me wrong, the pressure and pace he fights at is super impressive, but it's also very limited, like anyone who can like actually like hold him off and like with really good footwork. Like, it's basically anyone who can just like Shakur he's better than Tevin Farmer. Don't get me wrong, Tevin Farmer is good, but he's a little past. He's not quite world champion material. Like he's like the perfect like bridge, like the final like he's the perfect gatekeeper. He's to see like what a guy has and before you get a title shot. And like if Cepedo's kind of struggling with him, Shakur is in his prime. He can do everything Farmer can do, but better. I mean Tank's got one punch knockout power. Davis is a dog. I think each of those four guys should beat Cepeda if they ever fought.
Okay, now here's the real question. Now we talked about the top 4, but what about 6 to 10? Obviously, Tevin Farmer is at number 10. He's beaten him twice. But what about guys like Raymond Murataya, Andy Cruz, Frank Martin, Dennis Berinchek? What about those guys? Do you think William Cepeda is rightly ranked, or do you think there are some guys that should be ranked above him?
I think, ooh, I would think just because
It's really
like
tough.
Zepeda, yeah, the guys that Zepeda's beaten is probably like what he's beaten Maxie Hughes. He beat what
I
Jojo
mean,
Diaz. Like those
Raymond
are.
Murataya beat Tevin Farmer, and I think honestly he gave Tevin
Yeah.
Farmer a lot more trouble. I think, in my opinion.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I think that's probably the only one I would go back and forth with. Andy Cruz, I don't think he's had enough fights to warrant being ranked higher than Zepeda. He doesn't have like a win like it's similar to Zepeda's wins over Tevin Farmer. Frank Martin would be. I would probably have Frank Martin ahead of Andy Cruz. Um,
Do you think
Barrington,
Frank Martin be above William Zepeda or not really?
I think you make a good case that. I don't know. It's
I
just
mean,
because
okay, so despite
I
the
haven't.
only reason why I'm saying that is because despite his knockout loss to Gervonta Davis, I mean, he's beaten Artem Harutyunyan, who who fought Shakur Stevenson for the title, beat Jackson Marinas, and he beat Michelle Rivera, which I thought was a super impressive win. I mean,
That was.
Rivera was like touted as the next great prospect at that point in time. So that's
Yeah,
all
he
I'm
boxed him
saying.
up. Yeah, I think it's close. It's really close. I think you can. I would put Frank Martin ahead of Andy Cruz, and then like anywhere from like I guess between Zepeda, Murataya, and Frank Martin from 5 to 7, you could kind of play mixed match, and I could see it. I can. You can make a good case for any order. I would say.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And with that main event, that was the fight that, was very much anticipated for a lot of boxing fans. But for me, the most anticipated matchup for me was the lowest weight division in boxing, man, because this man, Oscar Collazo, man, what a
Yeah.
performer he is, man. He defeated Edwin Condon Hernandez, 5th round KO to retain the unified WBA and WBO minimum weight titles, man. Um, dude, what do you think of his performance?
That was super impressive. I mean, super impressive. He reminds me a lot of Lomachenko. Like, he's a southpaw. He gives his angles. He digs the body, and he's mean. He goes after you. And he can do everything too. He's very, very well versed. And yeah, that was my first time seeing him, and he is the goods. And hopefully he can become a big name to where he's like, whether it's like obviously you probably want to put him on bigger cards than like Zepeda. Like no disrespect or anything, but like what he's lined up with Golden Boy. So then you could like maybe like next time Verge Ortiz fights, or like any of their big names fight, that could be, or maybe when Ryan Garcia rematches Devin Haney, you could put him on the undercard. That just give him opportunities to where like he can like be seen on big cards, so he can make a name for himself, similar to what they did with Chocolatito and Triple G. Like they just kept on lining him up to try and get Chocolatito to spotlight he deserves. So, but yeah, super impressed by him, and hopefully he can keep on getting these fights and on good cards.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one thing that is crazy is that this is probably the most attention that the minimum weight division has gotten in a
Yeah,
long time. Obviously, like over in Asia, that's where the lower weight classes are dominated, especially Southeast Asia. Minimum weight is dominated mostly by, maybe Japan or guys from Thailand and stuff like that. So to have a guy who is on the western part of the world, be able to come up the ranks, have an exciting fighting style that can really attract fans. That's a big deal. I think the biggest thing though is that, obviously because it's minimum weight, the size is going to really detract a lot of people because boxing,
yeah,
no matter what it is, whether it's, NBA, NFL, everybody wants to have larger than life figures. And when you see a guy who's smaller than majority of men, stopping these guys, yeah, it's impressive, but is it going to attract everybody? Obviously, me. I'm super excited to be watching an Oscar Collazo fight. But would he be headlining any major events? And that's the question that I really am not
yeah.
unsure of right now. And that brings me to my next question. Can he become a big name in America? Because America, no matter what anybody says, that is where the money is at. That's where the cash cow is at. Even big names in the UK have to come to the US to generate the most money, unless your name is Anthony Joshua.
I Yeah, you're not wrong. And then one time he came to America, that was the Andy Ruiz, one of the biggest upsets in recent
It,
memory.
it was a
Um,
disaster. It was a freaking
yeah,
disaster.
and I don't know if he stepped foot in America since then. Um, but I think it's just like the one thing that he does have going for him. I mean, he's 12-0 with 9 knockouts. I think like if he's able to like keep on stopping guys, and he's doing so like impressively on like cards where he's getting like this kind of getting exposure, I think that would probably be his best bet. I would say he has to keep like stopping guys and doing so in a manner that like draws more attention rather than just people who just watch the fight. Like he'd have to like like for I hate the word, you have to like go viral. You'd have to do something like get like such an impressive knockout that it gets goes wild on social media. But I think I think he can. It's definitely still an uphill battle. It's even then, like with Chocolatito, like it's still like was a little. It took a while, and like what he was like 40 something and oh, something like that before he came to the states.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's the thing. And I think the biggest thing, we're in this four belt era, right? We're in this four belt era where everybody wants to collect all the belts. They want to be belt
Mhm.
collectors. And I think that's the biggest thing that might need to happen if Oscar Collazo wants to break into the mainstream is that he might need to become undisputed at minimum weight and then move up to junior flyweight, then move up to flyweight and stuff like that. But, being from Puerto Rico, it's weird. It's an interesting time. There's not that many Puerto Rican champions in this day and age of
Yeah,
boxing right now.
yeah.
So
I
is
think
Oscar
he's only
Collazo
one.
the best? No, no, no. Renee Santiago just won one
Yeah, that's what I
over in
said. You didn't
Japan.
hear me. That's what I said. Yeah,
That's why I said. That's why I said you didn't hear me. That's why I said. I said you
yeah.
said that.
Yeah. You heard me say I said that. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 for sure. But is Oscar Collazo the best fighter out of Puerto Rico right now?
I would say so. I think like he's unified champion, just like his stylistically, like he's so like he's such a smooth boxer, and he can do everything. He can box, he can push forward, he digs the body. He's such a fun watch, just from the 5 rounds that I saw, and hopefully there's more of him to come, and hopefully Rene Santiago can keep on building his name as well. But if you made me pick one, I would pick. I mean, I definitely believe Collazo is the best name out
Yeah.
of Puerto Rico right now. Best guy out of Puerto
Now,
Rico.
best guy. Okay, because I was gonna say best guy. I can agree with that. But
Yeah,
the
Amanda
problem
Serrano
is
is yeah,
this
yeah,
girl right
Amanda
here
Serrano.
exists. She exists. And I'll tell you right now, she's one of the greatest Puerto Rican fighters of all time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Hmm.
Uh so I can really understand the best male boxer out of Puerto Rico, but we're talking about best fighter overall. It has to be her. I mean, come on. Like
Yeah.
everything that
Hopefully.
she's everything that she's done, especially in the recent years, you can't really her
Hmm.
dominance at featherweight is really something to be amazed by.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
you know, I would say Oscar Collazo is the best male Puerto Rican boxer, but he still has a
Yeah.
long way to
Overall,
go
Amanda.
to
Yeah.
reach that overall.
I had
But
me a brain fart right there. I don't
yeah, I
even know
mean,
how to talk to him again.
you had two brain farts, the Rene Santiago and then the
Yeah.
Amanda Serrano.
God, I'm such a whitewashed Puerto Rican. It's horrific.
It's okay, buddy. It's okay. But listen, Golden Boy, that's where the Hispanics were watching. Everybody else probably watching Top Rank Boxing on ESPN because Mikaela Mayer beat Sandy Ryan in the rematch by unanimous decision in a fight that I thought was very, very entertaining, man.
It was
Mikaela
a great
Mayer
fight.
retains the WBO welterweight title, I believe. And honestly, I think this was a much more impressive performance for her because she was real in control of this fight. I think she was
Mhm.
very much in control of this fight. Was really giving Sandy Ryan a lot of different angles, throwing a lot over the top, kind of throwing with looping hooks, looping angles, a lot of footwork, a lot of smothering Sandy Ryan's work. What did you think of Michaela Mayer's performance?
Yeah, I was super impressed. Obviously, the rematch was, I mean, the first fight was a great fight too. And this was like arguably like just obviously it wasn't quite as close. It felt pretty clear that Michaela Mayer won. But it was like they're like, taking someone sometimes Ryan was boxing, other times Mayer was boxing, sometimes Mayer was pushing the pace and going forward. Then Ryan would push the pace and go forward. It was just a great fight and then just showing like how well versed they were. And I was just super impressed by Mayer and she did a good job of like blending everything. And
Yeah,
yeah, she's super tough too. She's not because what she was a undisputed unified champion at 130, and now she's fighting at 147, and
yeah,
taking it to Sandy Ryan.
yeah. And you know what I like more about this is because the first fight was plagued by that incident before the fight where
Yeah, the paint.
Sandy Ryan got paint dumped all over her. So, mentally she wasn't there, and that was really the narrative. But here it was straight just business as
Hmm.
usual in this rematch, and Michaela Mayer handled business. So honestly, I think that this was an impressive performance. And if we look at the women's welterweight division, obviously it goes to top five, not top 10. But listen, Sandy Ryan, she just beat her twice.
Hmm.
Natasha Jonas, she lost to her. Lauren Price, though, is at the top of that division right now. So, what do you think is next for Michaela Mayer? Could it be potentially a rematch with Natasha Jonas, or could she kind of go for all the straps and fight Lauren Price?
I would go for all the belts and fight Lauren Price. She said she's willing to go overseas to fight her too. She's been calling for that fight, and yeah, I feel like anytime you have a chance to become the undisputed champion, like that, I think you take it. And then if the Jonas fight, if the opportunity pops up again, then like I would be, if you can have all the belts going into the rematch, especially after how close that fight was. A lot of people thought Mayer won. Um, yeah, I would do that. Go for the belts, and then if you can get a rematch with Jonas, that's what I think would be the best path for Mayer.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, Olympian versus Olympian in that potential matchup between Lauren Price and Michaela Mayer. Only difference is one of them has a gold medal, and it's not from the USA. Tell you that right now. It's not from the USA. We haven't had a
Yeah,
gold medal. We
it's
haven't had a gold medal since Clarissa Shields. So
it's been Strugglesville, yeah. Yeah.
yeah, we're not good at amateur boxing at this point, and it
No,
kind of
I
sucks.
know.
But listen, that was the main event. But the fight, I always say this, but the fight I was most looking forward to was the co-main event because this man Brian Norman Jr. after almost a year off defends his WBO welterweight title against Derek Cuevas, stopping him in the third round. And all I have to say is, damn, this guy has some dynamite in his hands, bro. Nate, take it away. What'd you think of this short performance?
I mean, he's every bit. I mean, he belongs in the conversation with Stanionis and Ennis. I think, like, he has so much, and he can
I mean, he's
box.
a world
He can,
champion.
yeah, I know, but like, and you know how it is. Like,
Yeah,
sometimes
I
there's
know what you
tiers like
mean.
these guys, then it's this guy. Like, no, he's in tier one with those two, and yeah, just like he can box. He's got ridiculous power too. Like, he can it felt like every
100%.
time he caught Cuevas flush, like it was a problem. And then the last time when he dropped him, Cuevas got up and said, "Nah, I'm good." Like run me my check, I'm getting out of here. Uh
Yeah.
yeah, just super impressive by Brian Norman Jr. And yeah, I'm excited to see what's next for him. Like that was super impressive. I knew he had good power, but it was like just this fight, it felt like different. He's only 24 years old too. He's
Yeah,
only
which
gonna
is
get
crazy.
stronger. Like, I can't
Yeah,
yeah.
that is crazy. But what impresses me the most about this performance is because when you saw him fight Giovanni Santillan, man was confident,
Mhm.
almost borderline arrogant with the way that the finishing sequence was. You know what I mean? Hands
Yeah,
down, really taunting Giovanni in that fight, made him a bloody mess. And that's what really sold
yeah,
me on him. But in this fight, man, so focused, so patient with his counterpunching, so patient, and the timing of his shots. That was the biggest thing. The timing of his shots really caught Cuevas when he wasn't expecting and had him scared. By the beginning of the third round, Cuevas didn't want to be in there anymore. He
yeah.
literally didn't want to be in there. You could see it in the guy's eyes. He didn't want to be in there. And man, Brian Norman Jr., I mean, what he lacks in maybe, his other aspects of his game, that power, that's some God given power that can really erase some of those flaws. If we're being
Yeah,
honest, those that
and
that
it's the
is
ultimate eraser.
yeah, it's special, and I think he's special once he's able to fully. It's crazy. He's a world champion, and I feel like his game is not fully developed yet. You know what I
No,
mean?
yeah,
And once he's able to do that, he could be a real problem at 147. Maybe if he decides to, maybe even 154. And
mhm.
after this performance, after making his first defense, is he ready for the other champions at 147?
I think so. Obviously, I think ideally, like, and he called him out after the fight, like he fights Mario Barrios next. I think he should be a pretty clear favorite against Mario Barrios. And then, yeah, hopefully you can get that. And then you get the winner of Jaron Ennis versus Imantas Stanionis. And then you get a fight for all the belts at 147. And all of a sudden, 147 is kind of cooking again. It's very top heavy right now. It's really like a top three. And like Barrios is a champion, but it's kind of like,
Cooking
like
is
he's,
cooking is not the right word. I would say maybe some steam or something like
it's
that, or
heating up,
momentum.
heating up.
It's heating up, but
Yeah.
cooking. Man, there's been a big drop off at 147. Speaking of
Yeah.
147, I'm going to bring up the Ring Magazine rankings from 1 to 5. I'm not going to bring up 6 to 10 for certain reasons. There's an injustice. There is an injustice on this ranking because why is Brian Norman Jr. ranked behind Mario Barrios and David Avanesian? Not just not Mario Barrios is very debatable because he is the WBC champion. I understand that, but David Avanesian, no disrespect, because he is a very big contender in Europe, but this man got starched by Terrence Crawford, and he got stopped by
Good
Jerron Boots
Browns.
Ennis. Why is he ranked above the WBO world champion who just stopped a guy in Giovanni Santillan who was ranked in the top 5 when he beat him? What are we doing here?
I didn't make these rankings. Don't get mad at me. But yeah, no, Norman
Oh,
should be
you're
like
you're you're
3.
gonna feel this. You're
Okay,
gonna
all
feel
right,
this.
okay. Whoa, whoa, whoa. All right, take pause. I would put Norman should be 3, and it shouldn't be much. There shouldn't be much question about it. Yeah,
And here's the
that's
thing. Here's the thing. You
maybe
can
he goes
you
up
can
after this. Yeah,
you can make a debate that Norman could be too as well. You could.
he
And the
could.
reason why I say that is because of the inactivity of Amantas Stanionis. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
part of that also wasn't his fault though. Like he had like 3 fights fought through with Virgil Ortiz, I believe. Like one where he got hurt, and the other two where Virgil Ortiz got sick. But yeah, but you're
Right.
still he has been inactive. But
And
it
I'll
hasn't been like by choice necessarily.
right, but Norman has more title defenses than Stanionis.
I think they
Has
both have one.
no, because Stanionis beat Gabriel Maestre
Oh,
retaining
and then
his
he got
regular title, and then he got
okay.
elevated.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I said.
That yeah, you didn't hear me. That's what I said. I said you said that. But that's the thing. And that's what I'm saying is that if we're going off logic, granted, this is recent. This is the most recent. He just won over the weekend. So the Ring Magazine rankings might not be up to date. But if
Yeah.
we're going off the most recent results, you could make a debate that Brian Norman Jr. deserves to be at number 2 at 147.
And skill wise too. I was Stanionis versus like any of those three fighting each other, like Stanionis, Ennis, Norman, that would be fireworks, you know. But yeah, you could make a case that he should be definitely like no lower than 3. He should be ahead of Barrios.
Yeah. So from a world champion to a world title contender, Mr. Bruce Shushu Carrington is now in the title picture at featherweight, man, defeating Jose Enrique Vivas, third round TKO. Again, another impressive a 3 round performance by another highly rated, boxer. Nate, what do you think?
That was super impressive. Obviously Vivas he hadn't been stopped before, and then he rocked him at that fight could have been stopped at the end of the second round, and like it wouldn't have been much debate. Like he dropped him with the counter right hand, and then he had him like he was beating the hell out of him for the rest of the round too, and yeah, he's really starting to like grow into his frame, and like if he can add power to add like legit like power to his skill set, like if this was a sign of things to come, like he's going to be a problem
Yeah.
by the way, for years to come, probably.
I think I think what impresses me most about him is the maturity in his game. That's the biggest thing. It's just you can tell really the difference in class when I saw Shushu fight Vivas, man. And just the little details, the little pickpocketing things, the counters, the setup to the shots. It was a really good performance. And what was he? What title eliminator was for WBC?
I'm not because he's ranked number one by the WBC, number one by the WBO, number two by the WBA. He basically
So
has his
he
wherever he
literally
wants to
can
be
be,
mandatory.
yeah, he literally can be a mandatory for 3 sanctioning bodies, and
So
he
yeah,
called out multiple champions after his fight. Nick Ball was one of them. Who else was the other one?
Stephen Fulton.
Stephen Fulton. Those are 2 excellent matchups, I think. I think more the Stephen Fulton one that entices me more than the Nick Ball. I just don't want to see Nick Ball become a soccer player anymore. Honestly, I'm low key. I'm low key
Yeah,
over that. But featherweight is one of those rare divisions where there is 4 different world champions. Man, and I love when that happens because it makes boxing and the division exciting. Which champion do you want to see Bruce Carrington fight next?
If I were to put on my manager and promoter cap, I would probably put him try. Apparently, Top Rank and PBC are going to start working together too. I would probably go Stephen Fulton just because, like, I feel like it's a good, like, a necessary, like, next step in that. Like Fulton's obviously he's getting a big, like Carrington's getting a big test either way. But like, if he loses to Fulton, it's not going to be like Fulton's going to do some like serious damage to him. You know what I mean? It's going to be like, okay, he got outboxed. We can like improve from this. Whereas like Espinoza, I feel like that would be different. I feel like that would probably be the best fight overall. But
Yeah. Are you talking about damage in terms of like physical damage or damage to his reputation?
physical damage, like
Okay, because I was gonna
that's going to
say,
mess with your career, like damage.
reputation wise, if he loses to Stephen Fulton, people could be like, "Well, you just lost to a guy who got knocked out by in a way."
Like physical, like damage. That's where like
Okay,
Espinosa would give me a little bit of, but I would be willing to put him in with Ball too. I think with Ball it'd probably be more just like the physical pressure, like you couldn't quite like hold him off, you know.
yeah, yeah, and that would be that's for me. I think honestly, I think Stephen Fulton would be the most favorable matchup for him. I think because he has, with that fight against Fulton, he has time to really think about his shots and to really set up. He'll have time in that fight because Fulton is such a distance fighter, a guy who wants to fight on the outside, that it would give Carrington a few notches to really think about what he wants to do, set up counters, set up traps and stuff like that. Whereas with Nick Ball, you know what he's going to do. Nick Ball is going to pressure you and kind of smother not only you but himself as well. And it's going to be a very frustrating fight for Shushu Carrington if he's not quick
Us too.
with his actions. Espinoza is really interesting because I mean he hits hard, one, and he's just such an alien in that division, kind of like Sebastian Fundora, where he's just so big for that division for like no apparent reason. Like I don't even know how he makes that weight, low key.
He reminds me a lot of Antonio Margarito. Just like that constant like forward
Yes,
presser and digging the body. And that would be. I think that would be. But he's there to be hit too, which would make it like very interesting.
yeah,
Yeah, I think
and
that's
then
probably the big fight. If you're like, you look forward a couple years, like Carrington versus if Espinosa can stay at
yeah,
126.
and
Um,
then Angelo Leo, I think is the best overall boxer. I think he's a combination of both. Has nice power, is a real technical, moves super well. What he did to Luis Alberto Lopez is oh my gosh, I think pretty scary, honestly. I think that's the biggest thing to say. It's pretty scary, but the only gripe with Angelo Leo is that he has to get past Mr. Tomoki Kameda over in Japan. He's going to enemy territory to defend his belt. So that's the only gripe I have with him. I do think he will get past him. It is interesting, but yeah, I think honestly, Shushu Carrington has an immense amount of opportunities ahead of him. They're just not all the fights. They're not easy. There's no favorable fights.
when you're trying to make the next step from a contender, from a rising prospect to a contender to a champion, though. So it's gonna be very interesting to see how it shakes out. I'm very excited. I think he can be the goods, and hopefully we find out.
Yeah. So that was all the fight. Wait. One more fight that I want to bring up because we didn't make a banner for this, and that's okay because I will just mention it
That's on
real
me.
quick.
That's on me.
That is okay. We will mention it real quick, man, because Mr. Pedro Tataran, the IBF minimum, not the IBF, the WBC minimum weight champion, beat Mr. Yudai Shigeoka in the rematch on Sunday over in Japan, man. Beat him very convincingly. I don't have the scorecards right in front of me, but it was very far. It was very far. It was a very impressive performance for a guy who really, again, Philippines doesn't have many world champions or many superstars, but listen, they're starting to dominate those really, really, really small weight classes again. And it's great to see, man. And I'm gonna bring up these rankings real quick because minimum weight, aka straw weight, is looking pretty interesting because obviously Oscar Collazo is at the top, Ring Magazine, WBO and WBA champion. Melvin Jerusalem is actually, I just said Pedro Tataran. Melvin Jerusalem is the guy that beat Yudai Shigeoka. I'm so stupid, but that's what I said anyways. Melvin Jerusalem just defending his belt, his WBC belt. He defended his WBC belt against Yudai Shigeoka. Pedro Tataran is set to defend his IBF belt against Yudai's brother Jinjiro Shigeoka, and that is another rematch because look, Filipino, I'm Filipino, Filipinos on top, Pinoy power right there. But listen, this division, again, I'm such a big fan of the lower weight classes, and this division is starting to cook because we're getting a new wave of stars at strawweight. I mean, Oscar Collazo is starting to become a little more mainstream, starting to get attention in the States, and he's really putting strawweight 105 on the map. Melvin Jerusalem really putting a stamp on the rivalry between him and Yudai Shigeoka. Pedro Tataram's looking to do the same thing against Jinjiro. I think Jinjiro is the better of the Shigeoka brothers and will give Pedro a tougher matchup. Knockout CP Freshmart, he just got stopped by Oscar Collazo. I don't know how much more he has left in the tank because after being a champion for so long, I don't know if he has that drive anymore after losing all the belts. And then you look down here. I mean, again, it's hard to find these fights. I'll tell you that first and foremost. It's hard to find these fights once you reach from the 6 to the 10 mark. Minimum weight is not that easily accessible on TV. You got to find a VPN and you got to find a Reddit to get all the links. But I'm telling you right now, if you're able to watch 105, you should, because it's some of the most fast-paced, exciting boxing in boxing today. So that's my little gripe. That's my little promotion on the minimum weight division. Sorry for Pedro. I confused you and Melvin Jerusalem, but we're back to that. We're past that now, because now we're getting into boxing news now. Now we're getting to real boxing news. And the biggest thing from last week is not really big, but we have to talk about it. Deontay Wilder is coming back. He's coming back this summer, June 27th, against Tyrell Herndon. Nate, are you at all excited for this fight?
No, I am not. I just wish.
We
I
can
think
just
he
we
should
can
just
just end
retire.
we can
He
just
should
end the
just retire.
conversation there. Now,
He should just retire.
I will say this. Despite all the steam that he's lost, I am still going to watch him, because if he's able to give a blockbuster knockout, a highlight knockout, guess what? He's back in the conversations for
Yeah.
everybody. He's back in the conversations, and there's 2 fights that I still want to see him in. Number one, the one that is most likely going to happen, that's the fight with Francis Ngannou, a fight that could be very favorable to him, that could put him in the win column and not only give him a lot of money, but could put him back in the rankings, because despite Francis Ngannou being, what, 0-2 in boxing, still a big name. Still a big name, and he's still technically the lineal MMA heavyweight champion. So, yeah, that's one. And number 2, obviously, is Anthony Joshua. That is the fight I've been waiting for. It's not as appealing right now because both of them are coming off stoppages, really bad stoppages.
Horrific stoppages, yeah.
Probably the worst of their careers. But yeah, I mean, that's the only reason why I'm looking forward to June 27th. I want to see, this is really his last shot to see if he can even fight at heavyweight anymore. You know what I mean? He's naturally, honestly, Deontay Wilder is naturally a bridgerweight. And that's the real.
Wait,
He's a
there was a
bridgerweight.
time when he could have, yeah.
He's a bridgerweight. Like, he's naturally a bridgerweight because he's, what, 220, 217. Fighting guys that are like 40, 50 pounds heavier than him. It's impressive in and of itself, but there's such a time period or time span, a lifespan for his style of fighting, which is his one shot. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens on June 27th. Now that we got all of last week's news out the way, now we can talk about the fights that are upcoming this Saturday, because, again, not the sexiest weekend. And I'll keep saying that because if it's not a super card, it's not going to be the sexiest. But a lot of storylines to talk about, because the first one is down under, mate, because over in Australia, Tim Tszyu is fighting Joey Spencer, and this is a fight that I am paying close attention to, because I want to see if Tim Tszyu can bounce back. He lost 2 in a row, and his last fight is probably the most devastating, getting stopped by Bakram Murtazalia and getting knocked down, 4, 5, 6 times, maybe? 4 times. Four times.
One more in the third.
4 times in arguably the worst ways possible. Like, they weren't just flash knockdowns. These were all.
I still remember hearing the sound of the canvas when he got dropped the first time. I was like, oh, wow, that's not good.
Yeah.
Yeah. It only got worse.
So this is a very important fight for him. One, to prove that he's still at the top level at 154, and 2, to see if he can, just to gain his confidence back. I mean, granted, Joey Spencer is going to be a tough fighter for him, but I think all in all, Joey Spencer is still a regional guy. You know what I mean? No, he's not. He's a regional guy going to Australia. Regional in the U.S., but he's going to Australia. Hasn't had the level of competition that Tim Tszyu has fought, though. But I will say this. He did lose to Jesus Ramos back in 2023. He did lose to Jesus Ramos, got stopped in the 7th round. So this could be an interesting matchup. But listen, this fight is made for Tim Tszyu to gain his confidence back. It's over in Australia. He's in home. He's in home territory, and this should be the fight that sets up him versus Keith Thurman.
Fight that gets him on track. Tim Tszyu should be obviously. It's the biggest question is how has he recovered from the damage he took against Marrero Alyas. I mean, he took a beating. You know, you got dropped 4 times, and sometimes like that can be all it takes to lose your chin. And his durability was like a big part of his game, like his ability to take a shot. 'Cause he's always been like a pressure boxer. And yeah, it should be made to order for Tim Tszyu, but crazier things have happened. But I'm expecting him to get the win, and move on to Keith Thurman.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing about it is that, I mean, with Keith Thurman, beating Brock Jarvis back in March, I mean, that's the fight that they look like everybody's going towards. I think that's the biggest thing is with Keith Thurman. That fight against Tim Tszyu was supposed to be made last year. That was supposed to be Tim Tszyu's coming out party in the U.S. And unfortunately, that did not happen. Sebastian Fundora Keith Thurman got injured, and then Sebastian Fundora really took that ball and went with it, and now he's the unified champion there. But Tim Tszyu, man, a lot of steam, the perception of him has changed drastically in 1 year's time, and this is the shot for him to really rebuild that. Now we go from Australia to the UK, mate, because Joe Joyce is fighting Filip Hrgović over in England, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm not very excited for this fight. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. It's not. I'm not even. And with Filip Hrgović, he's coming on last minute because this was originally supposed to be Dillian White, and that would have been a fight that I would have been less excited for.
Yeah, that's this has retirement party written all over it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joe Joyce is just not the same guy, and Flip Hergovic kind of got exposed by Dubois. So I mean, it'll be entertaining, but it also might be tough to watch. It's like a weird combination of I don't know how to feel.
I don't know if it'll be. I don't even know if it'll be entertaining because I think for Hrgović, if he gets going, it's going to be a one-sided fight because Joe Joyce's punch resistance is shot. It's shot, and that's that was his best attribute to really put on his work, to put in his glove work. Without his punch resistance, Joe Joyce is all he is almost target practice for these guys, dude. How do you get knocked down by a gassed Derek Chisora? Like a Derek Chisora who was laying on the ropes for the majority of the fight.
That was a tough fight to watch.
Hey, listen,
yeah.
I'm just glad my boy War Chisora won because I'm all in on the Derek Chisora Farewell Tour. I am full. I'm on the train. I am in the front. I am in the front row. I am in the front row for that. And if he does, guess what? I'm buying that. I'm buying even if it's free.
It'd be against Dubois, I believe.
I know. Even if it's free, I'm buying that. I am buying that because I'm here for Derek Chisora, man. But listen, we go from two heavyweights that have lost a bit of steam to two heavyweights that are gaining a whole bunch of steam. We have to go back to the States because Top Rank Boxing, Richard Torres Jr. versus Guido Vianello. And oh my gosh, I am super excited for this fight. I'm very, very excited. Nate, what do you think about this fight?
A really good test for Richard Torres, and Guido Vianello is no joke. And we saw his last fight. He busted up. God help me, I'm forgetting the guy's name. But
or is it like Arslan Beck or something?
Yeah, that guy. That's what I said. But yeah, this is a very good crossroads fight to see if Richard Torres is the goods, and can he become the next guy at heavyweight, which is heavyweight's turned into a really good division. There's a lot of depth there now, and I'm really excited to see if Torres can take that next step to show that if he can go graduate from a rising prospect to a contender.
All I'm saying is this: I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Boxing is thriving when the heavyweight division is thriving, and that still goes here because even you look at the top 10, which I will bring up right now. Top 10, boom, hello, how are you there? Boom, top 10. You don't see any Americans, do you? No Americans on the top 10. What a shame. What a shame. But that's okay because we have one guy that could really, really put his name on the map. And that's Richard Torres, man. I mean, Olympic silver medalist in the 2020 Olympic Games. A guy who's super athletic, which again, being athletic in the heavyweight division takes you instantly to the top 6 once you get the opportunity. Instantly top 6 fighter right then and there. And if he's able to beat a guy in Guido Villanello who dominated Arslanbek Makhmudov, shut his eye completely closed, made it look so just grotesque that I don't even want to look at it, and fought F.A. Ajagba to a split decision that could arguably should have went his way. It'd be a great fight, and it would be a great victory for him. And I think that would catapult him into the top 10 of the Ring magazine.
I mean, this is what these are the kind of fights that kind of like make boxing. You find out who's going to be next in line, and hopefully it's a good fight. We're going to get our answers on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. And one more fight that we have to talk about is Abdullah Mason returning. I mean, we talk about highly touted prospects. This is probably the highest rated prospect in boxing today, like the highest rated.
If there was I guess like how MLB has like their top 100 prospects. Obviously, you wouldn't do that for boxing, but if someone like actually like dug into that and did it, like he'd probably be number one. He should be number one. He's so skilled, like beyond his years, and he's only 20 years old. Like, and this is his first time fighting a 10-round fight too.
Yeah.
So
He reminds me a lot of a young Boots Ennis. Just can do everything, has power in each hand, super slick, very skillful, well-rounded, great footwork, great movement, great feints, great counterpunching. The list goes on and on. He reminds me a lot of him. He reminds me a lot, but I think honestly he's going to be the only Abdullah Mason once he grows into, his career, once he settles down. Man, I'm excited. I'm excited. Listen, there's two prospects that I'm very, 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 very focused on. Carmel Moten and Abdullah Mason. And this Saturday, I get to see one of them. So yeah. But listen, that's all the boxing news. So let's go into a game. Let's go into some YouTube shorts before we end this show, man. And we did blind rankings, I think, last week. So this week, we're doing a different game. We're calling it Contender or Pretender. And what we're going to do is we're going to name 5 boxers. And you're going to tell me if it's a contender or a pretender. And Nate, you got it backwards on the lower third. It's okay, though. It is okay.
Yeah, no, it's all right. We can always edit this out,
No. We're keeping this part. We are keeping this.
My bad. I also misspelled Philip. So yeah, rough day for me. Not
Flip. My dog Flip Hergovich.
My dog. You didn't hear his cousin Flip? He's one of
my dog. Yeah, you didn't hear me. That's what I said. But Nate, I'm gonna let you start first. You give me the division, and I'm gonna rank them.
All right, we're gonna go lightweight, and number 1 is Adrian Broner.
Get out of here. Get out of here.
All right, what order do you want to go in? I'm gonna go Raymond Murataya. Do you think he's
a contender? He's a contender, and I'll tell you why he's a contender. Because, I wasn't impressed with the Tevin Farmer performance because Tevin Farmer, before that,
super tricky.
He's super tricky, and he was coming off a 3-fight winning streak, 1, and he still had the perception of being a top former world champion. And 2, he really put it on him in the last half of the fight, and that's really stole the fight for him. But when he stopped Jesus Antonio Campos in the second round, I was like, dude, I'm sold on Raymond Murataya. So I think honestly, he's a future world champion.
I love his style. He's like such like pure like boxer puncher. Obviously, he trains at the Robert Garcia camp. He's so well schooled, and yeah, I think I agree. I definitely think
he's one of his best pupils in recent years. He's one of the best. So
he's up there. Yeah, but him, Virgil Ortiz, it's really those two.
Yeah. What we got next, brother?
Let's go Edwin De Los Santos. Do you think he's
Yeah,
contender, pretender?
yeah. That's hard. That's hard. Okay, it's hard because what do I have to go off of for Edwin De Los Santos? Right? What do I have to
Rick
go off?
Stevenson fight.
Shakur Stevenson, Shakur Stevenson, and the fact that he's fighting Keyshawn Davis next, or potentially fighting
Fighting
Keyshawn
next. Yeah,
Davis
that's a
next.
fight that was currently being discussed. Nothing
Right,
finalized with that yet, though.
right. Now, here's the real thing though. He beat El Rayo Jose Valenzuela though, and that's why it's kind of hard for me to decipher if he's a contender or pretender because Jose Valenzuela was just recently the WBA, you know, junior welterweight champion. So at lightweight, let me think.
Not since he
I would,
lost to Shakur too.
I'm not, and I'm not even going to talk about that Shakur performance. That was the worst fight I've ever seen. I'm going to say, I'll say contender. I'll say contender because you think about it. I mean, he's such a high level guy, and he gives these top guys a lot of trouble. So I would have to say contender.
It's like skill wise, a guy could be a contender. Like, does their resume like match up? Have they really earned a shot? Like, that's always
Listen,
where
he
it's
beat
tough
El
to.
Rayo. He beat El Rayo. That's
Yeah,
a
that's
former world
definitely a
champion.
worth. Yeah. Hmm.
So I'll put him there.
Yeah. All right. I'll go Andy Cruz. I think
Contender.
he's
We
contender.
don't even have to. Let's just go on to the
All right.
next guy. Contender.
Okay. Um, Floyd Schofield Senior's Twitter account, is that a Floyd Schofield?
Here's the
Do you
thing.
think he's
I was very big on Floyd Schofield, very big, and you know what really turned me off of Floyd Schofield was his last fight against Rene Giron, getting knocked down, getting gassed out, and I believe this was his first 12-round fight. So understandable. You know what I mean? Understandable. It's a 12-round fight. You've never been in that territory. But what turned me off even more was that whole debacle leading up to the Shakur Stevenson fight. I don't think
so
he's
much crap?
ready. I don't think he's ready yet to be a contender. So I'm going to say he is a pretender.
Okay. And for me, it's just like a maturity thing too. I get that he's young, and also like not to diss his father, but like just doesn't help matters whatsoever.
Not only that, I'm looking at this top 10 right here. Andy Cruz,
He-
Frank Martin, Baranchek, Murataya, Tevin Farmer. I think they all beat him right now.
I didn't include him, but like I think all those guys are contenders too. It was just felt like it was more so known than it was like a question. But
Yeah,
yeah,
so I would say he's still a prospect in my eyes. He's still a highly rated prospect. He's just not a contender yet.
contender for sure. Yeah, and we'll hopefully we find out sooner than later, and hopefully he doesn't get sick again days before a fight.
Oh yeah.
And the last one, this is gonna be a bit of a jump, but I'm gonna go Abdullah Mason. Do you think he's a contender, or would you still view him as a prospect right now?
Well, here's the thing, like just based if we're basing off just skill set, I think his skill set is a lot sharper, a lot higher level than Schofield's. I think Flo Schofield is closer just because he's been a pro longer. You know what I mean? And
More like
I also think Golden Boy even though listen, even though Abdullah has had more fights, I mean he recently turned pro. You know what I mean?
slowly. Top rank can like they do a good job of that. They're like
Yeah,
knowing
you
when to move
know,
them fast and when to take their
Floyd,
time.
but you know what Golden Boy does really well? Protect. Protect their fighters.
That also makes it worrisome too. If they're willing to throw a guy to the wolves a little early, is it kind of like okay, like are they like kind of like trying to
Yeah.
cash them out, or is it like
Yeah.
it's
Oh,
definitely worrisome?
Here's the thing. I'm gonna say he's a contender because even at the maturity level and the stage of his career he is right now, again, I'm just gonna bring it up. Farmer, Baranchek, I think he gives both of those guys trouble. I'm not sure about Frank Martin or Andy Cruz yet, I don't think Farmer or Andy Cruz. I'm not sure about, and I'm definitely not going to touch 6-1. But you can make a case, Farmer and Baranchek, that Abdullah Mason would give him real trouble. But I mean, again, like Top Rank does, they like to build them properly. But he is a contender in my eyes. Was that 5?
5. Yep.
All right, cool. So, contender, pretender for
Swear to
you,
God, if
Mr.
Asian
Sir.
donors.
Well, good sir, we're at welterweight. In honor of Mr. Brian Norman Jr., who was freaking awesome, we're gonna do welterweight. First guy I have, a wild card because his next fight is not at 147, but that's where his natural weight is at. So hopefully he comes back to this weight. Talking about Mr. Conor Ben.
I'm gonna go contender because of his partially because of his name and like he has some good wins. At welterweight. Granted, it was a while ago before he failed the drug test before he fought Chris Eubank Jr. We're supposed to fight Chris Eubank Jr. But I would say just based on some of the guys he's beaten, his name, and just how thin welterweight is, I would say he's a contender. I think if he wins and moves back down, he's getting a title shot.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
think. I think here's the thing. I don't know what they're doing with his career right now. He's just kind of in limbo with his career. I mean, obviously, you have to make money with the Chris Eubank Jr. fight, but put him back on track. This man is a natural welterweight. Put him back on track. Have him fight. If you're not gonna have him fight regional guys in the UK, have him fight again some former world champions like you guys were in 2021 and 2022. Come on, put this man back on track. I agree with that. I like that take. Next guy I have over in Japan, Mr. Jin Sasaki.
I think I'm gonna go contender since he's moved up to 147 pounds. He's had a couple of good wins, and what his only loss was to Hiroka, right? Yeah, what? No,
Yeah,
he's won. Yeah,
no,
he's
no.
won.
His only loss is to Andy Hiroka, and Andy
Yeah,
Hiroka. I mean, he just beat Ishmael Barroso.
Jin Sasaki has 7 straight wins. I think where is he ranked in the sanctioning
I
body? I know he's not far off. I think he's a. I would say he's a contender,
Yeah. So
and he
if
has
we
an
look,
interaction with the what number 4? Yeah, he's ranked number 4 by the IBF, WA, WBC, and number 2 by the WBO, which is the belt that Norman has. So that could
and
very well be
he's ranked in the top 10 at welterweight. So like
yeah.
he could be there. So I like that. I like that a lot. And the big thing about Japan is like I said before, they dominate the lower weight classes, but once you reach like lightweight and welterweight, they're few and far between. You know what I mean? And he's one of those guys that's in the few. So yeah, I like that take. I can't wait for him to get a mandatory challenge. So next
For Norman
guy
Jr., if he doesn't get Barrios, he move early because
I don't
they
know. I don't.
interacted. They interacted after the fight, and Sasaki told him like, "I want to fight you,"
That's
and
a
I think.
that'd be a good fight though. I think that'd be a tough
Yeah.
fight too. A real
Yeah.
tough fight for both guys.
Hmm.
So the next guy I have, he's moving up to 147, Mr. Josh Taylor, former undisputed.
Pretender, just 'cause I don't think he has it anymore. I think you saw him. He like slowly like he exited his prime at 140, and usually when guys move up, when they're already a little past it, they typically don't fare out. Nothing against like obviously his accomplishments were at 140 were great. He became an undisputed champion, but that's not the same guy that's moving up to 147.
Yeah. All right. I agree with that. I think injuries, inactivity, he's just not the same. Next guy I have is Mr. Shakram Giyasov. And if you need any help with this man, he is ranked number 7 at 147. So that is your only help right there if you haven't watched him fight. Uzbekistani fighter, Uzbekistani
9
style,
knockouts.
Olympic silver medalist.
Oh, he beat Pablo Cesar Cano. Oh,
You
he
can
fought in
also
Orlando
say
recently.
to be determined if you haven't watched him.
I haven't watched him, so I'm gonna go pretender for now. Let's see, like he's fighting Franco Campo next. He's always on the undercard of Anis Stanionis next week. So let's see how he does in that fight. So I'll go pretender for now. To be completely transparent, haven't seen him fight before, so
And
my
that's
bad.
okay because like I've only seen him fight once since then, so understandable. And my last guy at 147, contender or pretender, the one and
Oh god.
only Mr. Blair the Flair Cobb.
Oh, God.
Hey, and
Where's
he's a
Lyle?
welterweight. He is a welterweight. I'll tell you that.
I know you did me a solid there. What was his last fight against
Adrian
Adrian
Broner
Broner?
was it not Adrian Broner?
It was Adrian Broner, and he got a win over Maurice Hooker too. We got stopped. He got stopped by Alexis Rocha. Rocha's,
But Alexis Rocha is I would say he's a borderline contender. He's ranked in the top 10 of the Ring magazine and top 5 in sanctioning bodies.
He's ranked #1 for Norman's belt.
Yeah. So,
I'm gonna go.
so we're talking about Blair the Flair.
I know. Yeah, I'm gonna go pretender for Blair the Flair.
What you gonna put? No, just.
I was gonna say, yeah, dude. Those friggin' names wise, I mean, Maurice Hooker and Adrian Broner are good wins, but like he needs to. Those guys are like top contenders from like 3 to 4 years ago. You know, those are.
I would say a little longer than that. 3 or 4 years is a little.
That's me being nice, you know.
A little favorable, but it's okay. It's all right. Not a bad thing, but that was pretender. That was pretender or contender, like Nate put in the lower third. Now I read it.
My bad.
It's okay. But listen, that is it. That's all the time we have today for this podcast. Nate, any final thoughts before we end the show?
For his upcoming week of fights, good fights. Got Torres versus Vianello, and really excited for that one. We'll see how that goes, and obviously Tim Tszyu if he can get back on track, and then the following week is going to be the Ennis Stanionis. Hopefully, maybe we'll have someone to help us break it down next time. That should be a great fight.
Fingers crossed, man. But listen, man. That is all the time we have for today's podcast. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow at The Split Decision on Instagram, man. Follow my boy Nate Marrero at Nate Marrero. I don't know his social, but also follow his SIKO articles, man. He has some of the best boxing articles in the game right now. Thank you guys for watching. I am the TSD Alyas. This is my boy Nate, and we are out.